First two break and last.
Trials dark on every hand, and we cannot understand all the ways that God will lead us to that blessed promised land. But He'll guide us with His eye, and we'll follow till we die. We will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand it better by and by. We are often destitute of the things that life demands, born of shelter and of food, thirsty hills and barren land. But we're trusting in the Lord, and according to His word, we will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. We will understand it better by and by. Temptations in the snares often take us unawares, and our hearts are made to bleed for His thoughtless word of deed. And we wonder why the test when we try to do our best, but we'll understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home, we will tell the story how we overcome. They will understand it better by and by.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I didn't know, but I was going to get the chance to talk to the youth, and it was really, really, really encouraging because I used to be a youth pastor, and to be able to sit down and talk with English-speaking youth, it rejuvenated me a little bit. It made me feel good because I can talk it. I told them I operate at 2 speeds. I sleep and I'm wide open. That's the 2 speeds. So for me to be able to talk fast to people who can understand and comprehend everything I'm saying at the rate that I speak at, and not have to worry about putting it into Spanish or translating it, it was rejuvenating for my spirit. So we spoke at Mechanicsville Baptist Church this morning, and I told them it is good to come into a church that is active in missions, not just sending their funds out, not just supporting missionaries, but actually being on mission. I appreciate that about Pastor Orr here. He's always going somewhere. It seems like to me. And he's the lead of this church, and he's on mission, and that makes this church on mission. And we really appreciate that as missionaries coming to a church that's already mission minded. We are thankful to be able to be here to speak to you guys tonight. And we're just going to start out a little bit. I am Daniel. This is my wife, Laura. We have a little girl named Joselina. She is 5 years old. She's back in the Juanas, or children's church, as we had to call it for her, so she would go. We had, just to give a little bit of update, when we returned from Honduras in November, the transition, just so you know how life operates for a 4-year-old coming back who has their new culture is the Latino culture, the Spanish-speaking culture. When we came home, she came into my mom and dad's house where we're staying, and she walked into the bedroom, and her feet hit carpet for the first time of her life that she remembers. And she said, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy, come here." She said, feel this on my feet. What is this?" And she said, "It's carpet." She said, "What is carpet?" I don't know how you explain what carpet is other than saying, "This is carpet," but... And one time we were driving down the street and she said, "Look, there's a real live mailbox." And she was so thrilled and excited to see a real live mailbox. You know, those are just some of the cultural changes that you know, a little mind goes through, but there's also cultural changes that we go through as adults. I don't know if you've ever been on a mission trip or maybe served in the military and did a deployment, and when you came home, things are different. Things are a lot different. Your mind is expanded, your mind is opened up a lot, and you see things a lot differently. So it's good to come into a church and in the fellowship with people who kind of understand the mission side of things, and it's easy to communicate, it's easy to talk to. So we are thankful to be able to be here tonight.
We are. When we visited the last time, we shared with you guys that we are Youth for Christ missionaries, and I think we gave a little bit of history then about our organization. I feel like I'm yelling, I'm sorry. But we'd like to kind of touch base again for those of you that didn't hear us when we came before. We are with Youth for Christ. You can see in these pictures here, these pictures are from the 40s, from some of the original rallies. 3 gentlemen started, one of those gentlemen being the late Dr. Billy Graham. He was our first full-time staff member. That is him in the picture on the right. And this was as a response to World War II. So they felt the burden to minister to the returning soldiers, and they took off with that vision and that burden, and it turned into an international organization. So from these rallies, they started to kind of steer away from the large numbers and realized that they weren't able to be as intentional with discipleship. So they honed more in on discipling teenagers, not just reaching them in the masses, but plugging them into a local church, raising them up as leaders for the kingdom. So you'll see on this next slide, there's a map that shows you all of the green areas that are highlighted are countries where there is current Youth for Christ ministry happening around the world. It's in over 100 countries. Some of the gray areas also have ministry, but it's not safe to release that information because of the missionary and the staff there. Not every country has a couple or a family like us from the States. Some of those countries have nationals that have been trained by Youth for Christ to reach their own country. So that is the goal for us as Youth for Christ staff, to push into a country and to raise up young leaders after discipling them through our program, and to pursue or help them to pursue leadership in their own country with ministry, to turn that over so that the ministry continues if for some reason we ever leave the field. You can see the vision statement now is definitely zoning more in on being intentional, finding them a local church, which is very important to us. We think that plugging them into a place where they're seen and they're known and there's accountability is the key factor, just like here with ministry. But we like to share. This is just a big picture of Youth for Christ. We're a small part, but we're really proud of the legacy that is with our organization.
So as we shared before, last year, a year and a half ago when we were here, 2012 was the first year that we had an opportunity to go on a mission trip. And we went on a 2-month internship. And that's the year that we consider ourselves ruined for good. That's when we knew that we could, when we came home, we were not going to be able to be the same. We were not going to be able to live life the same way that we had been living it. We knew that God was calling us to something more than where we were at in our lives. So we spent 2 months in Honduras, and we absolutely fell in love with the Spanish-speaking people. And at that time, it was more of a Honduras type thing for us. But as the years kind of developed, we realized that God was calling us to the Spanish-speaking community. And now that we're been pulled out of Honduras, we understand why. So this was the year that our lives were totally changed upside down, and we were ruined for good.
So when we visited last time, we were preparing to leave for language school. That happened last year in 2017. We left December of 2016 and moved to San Jose, Costa Rica. You can see there the red dot. We are from a town, I don't know if you know Ridgeville, South Carolina, but it's similar to Latta in size and in, I guess you'd say, pace of life. And we left Ridgeville in exchange for a capital city of over 2 million people. So that alone was a huge shock for us. We are not city folks, so we had to quickly adjust to taking Ubers, kind of like a taxi, without having a vehicle, and just get used to the hustle of city life while we were learning Spanish. So that 9 months in Costa Rica was really difficult. We had days that we felt discouraged and forgotten and lonely and frustrated, but God was so faithful to encourage us right when we needed it. We would receive text messages or phone calls or Facebook comments saying, God gave me this verse for you today. I'm not really sure, but I just want to share it with you. Or we just prayed for you before dinner because God put you on our hearts. And it would be the day that we wanted to quit that we would receive that encouragement. So we just like to thank Pyurian for being such a huge piece of that with supporting and loving and encouraging us. There are days that we could have easily made it back and just packed up and threw in the towel, but the body of Christ is a beautiful thing when people respond to that prompting of your heart. So if you have someone that God puts on your heart that you've not heard from, we just would like to encourage you to follow through, because you may be that person that they need to hear that one piece of encouragement to keep pressing on. So we're thankful for that with our experience.
So in August of 2017, we moved from Costa Rica to Honduras, and I drove our vehicle with our dog, and I had a friend flying from Charleston to make sure I listened. He was 100% bilingual. I'd only spent 9 months in language school, the only 9 months of Spanish I'd ever had in my life. So I still have a long ways to go. It's a lifelong journey of learning Spanish. If you've ever tried to learn language, you understand that. So I wanted someone who was fully bilingual to make only about 600 or 700 miles, so it's a pretty long trip because of all the mountains and stuff. So we set off on this journey, and I like to share this story just as a testimony of prayer. I know we all say we believe in prayer, we pray for things, and sometimes we feel like we don't ever see prayers answered, or maybe you're a long down the road, and so we kind of forget about it. And if something's not like really near and dear and close to our heart happening in the moment, I think as humans it just kind of fades a little bit. But as I was driving, I drove through Costa Rica and then Nicaragua across the border, and we were driving a Jeep Wrangler here from the States, and I had a 9 Coke on top of it, and I had the whole inside totally full. So we drive through Nicaragua, and we come up to a police stop, a gentleman standing there wearing, I guess you could call it a uniform, no badges, no belts, no guns, no radios, no cars, no nothing. Him and another guy standing there with 2 phones in the room. I assumed they were police, and I thought they would stop and raise us down and ask us to pull over. So we pulled over, and he went down this list of things, starting with, you need a front license plate, you need this, and no, you license plate, no, I don't need this. So I've been doing my research, so I knew their laws probably better than he did. This was about 2 years in, I've been researching what I really needed. And my wife, who was very organized, helped me put together this nice little booklet with all my stuff. So I was organized, I was ready. Well, I gave him some paperwork, and he still asked for other paperwork. I want to know where my insurance was. And I knew I bought the insurance at the Nicaragua border. I knew I had this insurance, but I could not find it anywhere. I'm searching through my papers, cannot find it anywhere. So I finally told my friend, I said, go back there and find out what does he really want so we can get back on the road and we can go. So he goes back there, and he comes back and says he wants $20. I said, give the man $20 so we can leave. We're not sitting here anymore. So we gave him $20 and we were prepared for this. I knew it's kind of a part of it sometimes. It's just part of it. Not sure how I feel on it yet, but in that moment I was okay with it right there. So we gave him $20, we gave him my driver's license back, and gave him my paperwork back, and we're driving down the road, and we're looking through the paperwork, and we realized at that moment, the paperwork he was asking for was the paperwork I already gave him. That's why I couldn't find paperwork. So he had the paperwork. So I was so frustrated, and But I was okay. I was prepared for this. I've talked to many missionaries, and I told them that this part of it is got it, but when it really started happening to me, I started getting mad. So we drive 3 or 4 hours, and we get close to the capital, Managua, and we're driving down a road similar to Interstate 95, kind of a major road going through the city. And I see another police officer standing on the road up there by himself. No truck, no car, nothing. Had nothing. And of course, here we come, and he sees us, and he waves us over. Here we go again. So we pull over, and he goes down the same list, and I'm like, no, I can have my insurance too, right here it is. And he's got my driver's license. Well, then he turns around after he couldn't find anything, and he points to his side and says, you were speeding 19 kilometers an hour, which is like 12 miles an hour, going down I-95. I'm like, come on, give me a break. Well, it was his word versus mine. He told me he was going to write me a ticket for $300, and that they were going to keep my driver's license. And it's Sunday, so I got to wait till Monday to go pay the ticket. And then it takes 2 weeks to process the ticket. Then it takes 2 weeks for you to get your license back. And you have to come back to Managua to get your license. So I told my friend, I said, tell him you keep my license. I don't need it. He said, well, you need your license to drive. Find out what he wants, so we could leave. So he started 300, 180, 150, 180, 60. I ended up giving him $40 and he gave me my driver's license back, and I took off. And at that moment, I was so frustrated. I wanted to forget every bit of Spanish I had learned in the last 9 months, and I didn't want to learn any more Spanish. And I thought, here I am. I've sacrificed everything, Lord, to be here for these people. I got everything I own is literally inside of the vehicle with me. And God reminded me, that has nothing to do with everything you own. What you sacrifice has nothing to do. You're here to serve me. You're where I want you at this moment. I never said it was going to be a perfectly paved road with no police officers or whatever. I never said it was going to be non-bumpy. I called you here.'re going to endure obstacles. You're going to endure hard times. You're going to suffer maybe just a little bit for me. So it was eye-opening for me. After that, I started praying. Maybe I should have done this in the beginning. Maybe that's a little confession. I apologize. I prayed, and I sent a text message to Laura, and my phone wasn't working, but I sent a text message anyway. We had a whole rally for the praying. Please make us invisible. And we drove, somehow the message went through. And we drove all the way to Honduras, and not one time did we get stopped. We passed through 6+ more stops. We would come up to them, and I would pray, Lord, please make us invisible at this moment. Please, please. And the people would turn and look the other way. And if every single time it would give me full chills that I was for, because I could just feel God's Spirit and God's power in that moment parting the Red Sea for us to pass through. And it's still, because it's a real life testimony for me, it was my real life experience, it's real to me. It's the power of prayer and God answering those prayers in the moment and allowing us to pass through with no problem. That's just a little experience that we had coming from Costa Rica to Honduras. And it was a 22-hour drive. I drove straight through, so we made it.
So once he arrived in Honduras, Josie and I flew in the next morning, the end of August, and we started our life there at the camp. So we shared with you before, the picture in the top right is an aerial view of the camp property where we were hosting ministry, but also working on a house to live in and planning to be there full-time on the property. The picture on the bottom right shows you part of the construction phase of the house there at the camp. We arrived in late August, and Josie started school about a week after we arrived. The picture in the top there in the middle is a picture from Culture Night at her school. Instead of one day for Independence, they celebrate the whole month of September. Parades, music, food, dances, every single day. And then on the very last night night of September, they have a huge culture night where the schools come together and the children participate. And this is another testimony of prayer. We spent weeks praying with Josie to prepare her and to build her up to be part of her class and to celebrate in this culture experience. And she was so scared. She's like, Mommy, I'm the only one that looks different. They all touch my hair. They all touch my skin. They all call me baby doll, which is muñeca. And she couldn't understand. She's like, I don't want to be looked at. And we decided if she got to that night and didn't want to participate, that we would just go as a family and support her friends. She went in her normal clothes, and we took her outfit with us. And when we got there, she saw her friends dressed up and said, Mommy, I want to do it. And so she danced more than any little Honduran girl on the stage. She was stared at because everyone was saying, look how sweet, you know, but afterwards she said, Jesus helped me, Mommy, I wasn't afraid. And so he is even at work in her life to provide and meet her where she is, and we're just so thankful for that. We spent 3 months at the camp. We found a local church and started plugging into the community, meeting neighbors, having meals with people in the town, and just kind of making connections, no different than if you picked up and moved across the states to a different culture in the U.S. You'd have to find a new grocery store and find a new place to get, you know, your specialty stores and things. So it was a lot of connections that we were making, just getting settled into life and starting to slowly build relationships with teenagers in the community there that would come to the camp as well.
So when we left Honduras in November, we had pretty much finished building the house. And we had 100% intentions of returning to Honduras. And then this year, political uncertainty. They had the presidential election, and the guy everybody did not vote for got elected, and they were not happy, believe it or not. So things kind of went a little different direction than what we thought. Our dog was still there, our vehicle, all of our things. And in January, we found out that we decided maybe we should have been not just enough back to Honduras. And they relocated us to Puerto Rico. So now, after building a house in Honduras, and the ministry will continue in Honduras, the Youth Society will still be ran by nationals and won't have missionaries from the States there. So we have been asked to pioneer Puerto Rico. They have been praying for 30 years for a missionary community to Puerto Rico. And God shows up. So we stepped up to the plate and said, yes, we will do it. So we're going to be pioneering Youth for Christ there. So as an ambassador in the U.S. territory, so when it comes to this, you do not need a passport. You just hop on a plane and just hop right off and walk out. I was in awe. We went there 2 weeks ago. It was like driving into North Carolina or something. Super, super simple. Let's see, it is an island, 100 miles long, 36 miles wide. They gave us a 100-mile radius of anywhere we wanted to be in Puerto Rico. So we spoke at a church in Lata, and we had, there was a group called Campers on Mission. They showed up, and they hear us speak. They just happened to be in the area. And a gentleman was there, and he said, hey, my sister-in-law has a house in Puerto Rico. I have no idea where it is. They don't use it. I don't know what they're doing with it. I'll pass the information on. 4 days later, we get a call from her saying, yes, I have a house in Isabella, which is the community we were looking to live in, that you can live in rent-free for as long as you want. So it was, and you know, jumping from Honduras to Puerto Rico, the cost of living is significantly different. So we were super stressed on where is this $1,200 to $1,500 a month for rent going to come from. And then the Lord blessed us with this house. So I don't know. I don't even know if I can call this a job. I don't know. Just doing ministry and working directly for the Lord is just amazing. The things that happen when you really commit your life to the Lord in service with Him.
Absolutely. So as most of you probably heard, in September, Puerto Rico was devastated by what you can see there, Hurricane Maria at the end of September. And these were pictures that we gathered just off of some news articles before we went for our vision trip a couple weeks ago. So these are pictures from September, beginning of October, what we could find. And then the following pictures are from 2 weeks ago. These are pictures we took on our vision trip. You can see the blue tarps there are still FEMA tarps. that a lot of people are living under because their roofs were taken from the storm. And then that's a road that we came across that was shut down. On the next slide, you'll see a couple houses. And this is 5 months out from the storm. So a lot of these areas have power that have been restored. Not the entire island, but a majority of the island does have power. It may not be reliable power. They may only have it just a few days a week, but they have been restored somewhat. We did not make it up into the central region of the island, into the mountains, where most of the devastation is. There are people there still now in February and March, almost March, that are without power and clean water. And so we actually ran into a gentleman that introduced us to his pastor in their church right in the town that we'll be living in. They are doing outreach every 2 weeks to take food and water into these communities and to minister to the families. So that's something that we're going to do when we hit the ground, is start partnering with that church to go into these places and to meet those physical needs and build relationships. There's definitely a need. We have seen that, we've had a process of grief, I would say, over the last 6 weeks since Youth for Christ made the decision to not send us back. We kind of felt like that might happen watching the political situation, but when they made the formal decision, it was very difficult. There were days that we just felt so frustrated and so discouraged because we had dreamed for 6 years, to finally be there and to only get 3 months. And after we've prayed and reflected, we spent all of that time in language school with different families serving in different parts of Latin America. And every family would say, well, how long are you guys going to Honduras? We've signed up for 2 years in Nicaragua or 3 years in Ecuador. And we didn't sign a contract. We just left with no limitations. And we would say, well, we're going to Honduras for however long God keeps us there. And through this last 6 weeks, we've realized that we were more comfortable with 3 decades than we were with 3 months. We had just had it in our hearts that that was it. It was going to be forever, and that's just definitely what God wanted. And He did keep us there as long as He wanted us to be there. And it was hard for us to accept that it was only for 3 months. So this verse has really pushed us through the last 6 weeks. That first phrase where it says, "For I know the plans." We can rest in that. We don't have to know. We're done making plans. We tell everybody we're moving to Puerto Rico really for as long as God tells us to stay. And if it's only 3 months this time, we're okay with that. But we've had to really surrender and realize that even good things can get too strong of a hold on our hearts and can become idols. And God is a jealous God. And He has shown us through this process that this ministry is not ours, it is His. And we have to surrender to whatever that looks like. So this next slide, part of the graph there is kind of missing, but we'd like to close tonight by just inviting you to continue to be a piece of what God is doing with us now in a new nation in Puerto Rico. We are pioneering, so a lot of this is from the ground up, kind of baby steps along the way. So first, we'd like to invite you to pray for us. The biggest prayer that we have right now is for hearts of wisdom. We do not want to go into this making good decisions. We want to make the best decision every time so that God receives the most glory. We have some prayer cards with us tonight. If you would take one of our prayer cards and give it to someone that you know is a prayer warrior, or keep it for yourself, stick it in your Bible, put it on your fridge, however you have your prayer life set up. If you would just add us and our family to that, it would be a huge honor for us, and we really believe is the best thing that we could receive from anyone.
Next one is in that monthly ministry department. We're still a little low on our monthly need as far as meeting our monthly budget. So if you would remember to consider partnering with us in that aspect, it would be wonderful. Also, one-time gift. We've been given this house to use as long as we want. However, it is about 60 years old. It needs some renovation. It needs some work. It's got some leaks, but we're going to work through it. It's going to be fine. So, one-time gift to help fix the ceiling from leaking and the water from spraying out the wall when you turn the shower on. This goes over my tank. Maybe put the fresh coat of paint on. So one-time gift would help with that. And also experience. I push all of our pastors and friends and anybody who will listen to me talk to come visit us. Join the ministry trip team, come visit us. This is God's house that we have been given, and you are part of God's family. You are welcome to use it anytime. Come visit us. Come to Puerto Rico. Come take a vacation. You've got a free place to stay for as long as you want. Put a ministry trip team together. Pastor will support it. And also summer internship. If you know anybody who's looking to do that, you don't have to be in college to do that. But if you are in college and you're studying Spanish, you can actually get credit through Youth for Christ by coming and serving in a Spanish-speaking country.
Also to connect with us, we have on our prayer cards, we have our blog, our Facebook connection there. That's where we're going to be uploading pictures, testimonies, introducing you to the nationals that we meet there. Any of the locals that we get to partner up with in ministry, we're going to be really excited to share those stories with you there. So if you would just find our contact information on the card, and then you can kind of connect with us. Like I said earlier, even just a simple, hey guys, how's your week going, makes us feel like we're not just a little dot somewhere on a map. So if you could just connect with us in any way, that would be really helpful.
And the last one is most important of all is expand. You know, we've given our life to expand and share the gospel. Whether you pray for us, you support us financially, whether you join us on the